Seeing the two parties occupied with each other, you realize this is your chance to grab Mr. Flobby. Perhaps wary of humans, Mr. Flobby dashes out when you draw near. Vince is on equal footing with the three from the Order. You realize then that he wasn't fighting in earnest against you earlier. Engrossed in their battle, the combatants pay you no mind. When you reach out to grab Mr. Flobby, he suddenly attacks. Lower Mr. Flobby's stamina to calm him down. Exhausted from the fight, the raging Mr. Flobby finally stops attacking. But it seems he hasn't yet come to his senses. He glares warily at your party. Find something to help return Mr. Flobby to normal. You wipe Mr. Flobby's mouth with the handkerchief you received from the girl. Then you hear a quiet voice speak. "That's not my mouth," Mr. Flobby murmurs bashfully. It looks like the girl's familiar scent on the handkerchief returned him to normal. Having regained his senses, Mr. Flobby heads back to the village. You place the increasingly sticky handkerchief in your bag. Lappy approaches and tells you that Mr. Flobby has returned. The girl is ecstatic that Mr. Flobby is finally back home. "I'm happy for you," Melanie says with a smile as she returns the handkerchief. The girl bows her head and thanks you deeply. Mr. Flobby looks as slimy as ever. You just hope it's a happy slime. The headman wants us to bring Mr. Flobby to him. Would you mind, you ask? Of course not. But bring him back soon, she answers with a bright smile. I am so happy to see you safe and sound, the headman exclaims, giving Mr. Flobby a hug. You explain everything that happened, including the incident with Vince and the Ivory Order. He expresses his relief that the Order will be taking care of the criminal. He then thanks you for your hard work and instructs his stewardess to prepare dinner for your party. You can feel your collective mouths watering at the sight of the lavish meal before you. You, Mar, and Ridis immediately dig in. You aren't sure where you find a moment to breathe among all the feasting. Please, eat to your heart's content, the headman insists with a smile. Once your belly is full, you realize that Mr. Flobby is gone. And then... Room for dessert? The headman asks, offering you a plate of slimy jelly. You feel your stomach churning at the very sight of it. The color strikes you as familiar, and the stickiness sends a shiver down your spine. Is this Mr. Flobby? You ask the headman, your voice trembling in disbelief. The headman looks at you with a plain expression, one that holds no malice. Is that a problem? He questions back. This dish is a masterpiece, he remarks with a light-hearted chuckle as he gazes at the jelly. And I have you brave heroes to thank for it. Had you not brought that slime back, we would not be able to enjoy this exquisite dessert. You move to leave, but the headman stops you. I try to get my meat while it's still young and tender, but at least your pet is very plump, he remarks, licking his lips. He points at Mar and asks, would you consider leaving that creature here with me? Never, you refuse flatly, not bothering to hide your discomfort. Think about it, he entreats. And then... You grab the headman by his lapels, hands trembling in fury. Pummel the headman with all your might. Curled up on the ground, the headman groans in pain, but insists that monsters were meant to be eaten. You hug Mar tightly, reassuring him that you will not hand him over to anyone. Mar looks at you with his round eyes and mews softly. You meet eyes with the rest of your party and reach a tacit agreement. Together, you all stand and leave. As you are about to leave the headman's house, though, the old man suddenly charges at you from behind. But Mar, the keener of you two, is quick to block his path. With a crash, Mar and the headman tumble to the ground. From the headman's hand falls a small blade. It clatters to the ground, covered in blood. You take the injured Mar to an inn where you can watch over him. You gaze at the unconscious Mar with concern. Despite the shallow wound, no amount of medicine seems to rouse Mar from the bed. I heard that my friends were in danger, so I came as quickly as I could, Lappy says. As he reaches Mar's bedside, he leans over and licks his wound. "This is what-you-call-it extract," he shouts. He explains that it is a poison extracted from a certain monster. If it enters the body, it drastically reduces one's stamina. Hearing those words, you realize the headman's blade must have been coated in this poison. Mar's condition starts to make sense. "Isn't there anything we can do?" Melanie asks. Lappy's eyes widen in realization before he places his mouth over Mar's wound and begins sucking. He then puts the what-you-call-it extract into a bottle and hands it to you. Lappy says that if you follow the road south of the village, you will reach Shoreland. He tells you to give the extract to the famous nutritionist there. Realizing that you are at fault for this, you don't hesitate to undertake the quest. But this is strange. The extract comes from a monster, so it should have no effect on one, Lappy remarks with a curious tilt of his head. "I thought a beast of that size would eat us out of house and home," she remarks, no doubt talking about Mar. The girl sighs. "You're dirty again," she says, wiping a slime's mouth. "Mr. Flobby, you're alive," you exclaim in glee. "This is Mr. Globby, Mr. Flobby's cousin," she tells you.